We are recording.
Okay. Well, we'll open the meeting of June 23rd with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty and justice
for all.
for all.
In accordance with Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of open meeting law, general laws, Chapter 30A, Section 20, this meeting will be held remotely in an online conference hosted on zoom.com, and members of the public will not be able to physically attend. It will be broadcast live on Comcast Channel 12 and can also be viewed via live stream at WHCA TV Channel 9, and it'll also be broadcast on YouTube.com. We'll open the meeting with a moment of silence. This meeting's being recorded and televised by a local cable company. Approval of bill and payroll warrants. Is there a motion?
Dan, motion.
Brian, second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay. Justin,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Randy,
Yes.
and I'll say yes. A motion to accept correspondence in the read file.
Dan, motions.
Is there a second?
Brian, second.
Any discussion? Okay, Randy,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Justin,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes as well. Approval of meeting minutes, open session May 5th. Is there a motion?
Yeah, Dan, motions.
Brian, second.
Okay, are there any discussion? Okay, Justin,
Yes.
Randy,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Brian, and I'll vote yes. And then opens the open session on May 19th.
Dan, motion.
Brian, second.
Any discussion? Okay, Justin,
Yes.
Randy,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes as well. We have a public hearing tonight with respect to the application of Mass Auto World Incorporated for a Class 2 auto license on the premises located at 470 Temple Street, subject to the receipt of an organization, a lease agreement, license fee, and final inspection approval by the building commissioner. We received a letter from the building commissioner or an email today saying that he saw no problems with the project. Is there a motion to approve?
I will make that motion, Dan.
Is there a second? Okay, is anybody here from Mass Auto World? Did anyone sign up for this?
They were invited. They're apparently not online. This is
Anyone have anything to say?
This is a location that was previously occupied by Star Auto. Star moved when it purchased the property that we auctioned at 1025 Temple Street. And this individual is simply seeking to conduct business at that same location where Star used to be. There was no real change in the neighborhood or in the site.
Anyone have any questions? Okay, roll call vote. Randy,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Justin,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes as well. Town administrators report, Frank?
A couple of things. My biggest concern right now as it relates to COVID is our ability to go back into normal operations. We are awaiting the delivery of a temperature sensor system that the fire chief ordered, which will be used to assess temperature when people enter the building as a kind of a screening tool. We have not had any issues yet. I would like to return to full staff in the town hall. And once we have the ability to do that, I will ask the board to authorize returning to full staff. Right now, the treasurer collector's office is fully staffed because we're approaching month end and year end, and they need all hands in order to get things done. They are properly socially separated, so we should not have any issues there.
Okay, does anyone have any questions of Frank on that item?
Nope.
Anything else, Frank?
We continue to encourage our local licensees, our businesses, to take advantage of the opportunities to return to business. We have reached out, and I'll ask Lisa to comment on that, but we've reached out to local businesses to see if they wanted accommodation to expand their operations. We're anxious to see in this second half of phase 2 whether restaurants will actually be serving indoors. They're not currently. Although, from what I understand, Wendy's is now allowing people to walk in and order, but they can't sit down and eat. So we're just hoping to get to some stage of normalcy. And Lisa, you might want to mention the results of your outreach from Randy's suggestion 2 weeks ago about outdoor business.
Yes. So I actually contacted and spoke with all of the restaurant owners on Washington Street, Ted's Place, Millie's Lunch. I spoke with Richie Rosen. I spoke with Napoli Pizza and Supreme. Basically, Napoli Pizza was the only business that expressed any interest in participating in an outdoor seating type of event. The other business owners, although they appreciate the gesture, said at this point in time, with the resources that they would have to spend to make that happen, it really just is not feasible for them at this point. The majority of them were concentrating on getting their businesses and staff ready to reopen indoor dining. And basically, again, they thanked the selectmen for their support, and maybe we can revisit this in the fall once they've had an opportunity to get back on their feet. But it was a great idea. We all thought it was a great idea.
Anyone have any thoughts or questions of Lisa?
Randy does.
Yeah.
Randy?
I just appreciate the work Lisa put into it. And I also did speak to one of the restaurant owners, and when it was initially brought up, that was kind of my fear, that it would be something that would actually maybe be more of a burden to the restaurant owners at this time than would be a profitable success. But maybe it is something like, Brian, like you had mentioned last week, that maybe down the road, as we step back into normalcy, maybe it's something, an event could get planned or something like that, and we could kind of work off the idea. And just one other comment, as things in that I've noticed that I would just like to get this out there a little bit, is as we've started to get back into a little bit normal routine, and something I've seen business owners have started to open. I actually went and got a haircut today. I would just urge people to
Let me see.
have a little bit of patience. I think all these business owners out there are, you know, in a having to jump through hoops and doing things that they're not really quite used to in their normal operation. So let's cut everyone some slack. I think everyone is trying their best, and everyone's going to have a little patience as we start to reopen things.
Okay, thank you, Randy. Anyone else?
Nope.
Okay, back to you, Frank.
Okay, on the budget review, You have been provided with a 1/12 budget prepared by town accountant. Ken has thoroughly reviewed last year's spending in order to determine the peak spending that needs to be done in the first month of the new year, because 1/12 budget really isn't 1/12 because they're front end loaded. So what you have before you is a request to vote a 1/12 budget for July in the amount of $8,495,517. That differs slightly from what was sent to you last week, because we found that Plymouth County Retirement had increased our assessment by $2,762, and that money is all paid on the front end in July. So with a vote of the board, the accountant will submit a request to the Division of Local Services to approve a 1/12 budget for the month of July, again, in the amount of $8,495,517. And if you want to put that in perspective, the entire budget for this year is $39,252,492. That's what will be presented on July 27th.
Okay, anyone have any questions of Frank? Or is there a motion to approve that 1/12?
Dan, make that motion.
Brian
Is there a
second.
second? Okay, discussion.
Frank, I have a question, Carl.
Yep.
Frank, where are we getting this money from? The 8 million and change, 8,500,000.
It will be coming from money we eventually raise. The whole process involves the collection of local receipts and levy. It may well be that we will have to take revenue anticipation notes if we don't have sufficient cash to cover that before we receive our first tax payments, which will be in July.
Right, we can't take out of the stabilization, or can we?
No, not without a vote at town meeting, nor should we.
Right,
We know the revenue's there. In the case where revenue is delayed, slowed because either tax bills go out late or some incident occurs that interrupts the flow of cash, unless you know you're not going to get it, you're able to borrow the money on revenue anticipation notes. That's short-term borrowing at reasonable rates that allow us to continue operation. As long as people pay their tax bills in July the way they usually do every July, we will not run into a problem.
all right, and this monies that we're prepaying will be just subtracted from the Article 2 when we vote, when we go to town meeting.
No, Article 2 is a budget. What we're doing is we're just doing a 1/12 budget. We haven't voted the town budget yet, and we're not appropriating. We're getting permission to spend.
Okay, all right,
We don't have the ability to appropriate. Only town meeting does.
right. So, all right, so when we vote Article 2 at annual town meeting, that monies it'll show that where we can spend this money.
Yeah, it will be the authorization to establish the budget for fiscal year 2021. And what's unusual is we will have spent some of that money by
Right,
the time we actually vote it.
okay.
Spending in advance of appropriation.
Yeah, because I'm looking like the very first item is, of course, is the town meeting and elections, right? What
Right.
they're asking is 45,000. We're looking to do July, which is 2,000. We're trying to draw 2,000 out of it, or 926, whatever it
No,
says.
no, maybe I should have explained this better. When we do our 1/12 budget or an estimated budget,
Yeah,
we are allowed to estimate 1/12 of what we spend each year, or the actual amount that we anticipate spending in the month of July. So the July number for town meeting is more than we think we'll spend in July, but it's a 1/12 budget.
right.
When
Okay,
you get to Plymouth County, the bill for the year is $2,211,000, and we're going to pay all of that July 1st. So we are allowed to budget what we estimate we will spend, but not increase spending on anything that isn't pre-committed, like bond payments or payments to municipalities and retirement systems.
will we be spending monies, the 1/12th, on items that say don't get voted on or don't get passed on an Article 2, on any line item? What do we do?
It's possible that could happen. It's not really likely, but it's possible.
Okay, just,
For example, if you look at line, is it one? Give me just a second. Line 175, Whitman Hanson.
okay,
We're requesting $14,398,000. However, 1/4 of last year's budget is
okay,
$3,599,538. And even though we pretty much believe we're going to be spending more this year, we're not allowed to spend more than last year's budget if the result is increasing expenses without approval. So no budget that involves an expense over and above 2020 can be spent in that 1/12 mode, except for debt payment and assessment.
that's why the numbers for 2020 and 2021 are basically are the same down the
Right.
line.
Correct.
Okay, all right, all set. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Anyone else?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah, Justin.
So this 1/12 budget is made possible by a special act of the legislature this year. It's a one-time COVID related thing.
No, there has always been a provision under law for a 1/12 budget. But it's a little more routine this year than it's ever been. There is under chapter 39, I don't remember the section. If you're unable to hold a town meeting, you can request permission to do a 1/12 budget. Probably get a little more scrutiny then than you will right now, because so many communities are doing this. It's really something that we haven't seen in Massachusetts before. It's just really unique. I'm just looking for one thing I received today from Jeff Simonak. According to 87 regional school districts are doing a 1/12 budget in July.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's certainly unprecedented, but it's something we need to do to continue to function.
Anyone else? Okay, new business. Take action to rescind.
We need a
Yes.
vote, huh?
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Voting to approve the 112 budget. Justin,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Randy,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes as well. Take action to rescind the common vittler's license for Restoration Coffee premises located at 401 South Avenue. The licensee is no longer operating at that location. Is there a motion?
Aye. Dan motions.
Brian second.
Any discussion? Okay, Randy,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Justin,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes. Act on the request of Helen Iannone on behalf of Whitman Youth Soccer to hold opening day parade on Saturday, August 29th, 2020, beginning at 8:30 a.m. in accordance with the route outlined in a letter received on June 8th, 2020. Is there a motion?
Dan motions.
Brian
Is there a
second.
second? Any questions or thoughts?
Yeah, Carl, if I may, I noticed in the letter that she didn't have an alternative date in case it rains that day. So I guess if it rains that day, she's gonna have to come back or whatever. I don't know. So,
Frank, do you have a response to that?
I'll reach out and see if she's interested in an alternative date. If so, I'll bring it back to our next meeting.
yeah, so, but this one's fine.
Anything else? Okay, Justin,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Randy,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes. Act on the request for a line item transfer in the amount of $34,273.07 from the thumb latches for schools to line item number 224, veterans benefits. Is there a motion?
Motion by Dan.
Is there a
Second.
second? Okay, Frank?
Okay, I'll explain where it's coming from first. Last year, we voted to appropriate $45,000 to place security latches on all of the doors in the elementary schools. We also, in a separate appropriation, paid for latches in the high school. The elementary school and middle school were covered by a state grant, so that spending was not necessary on the part of the town. Where we needed such a significant amount to transfer from the budget line, that was something that was easily available and not affecting any other appropriations or potential year-end spending. The reason for the need is the cost for veterans benefits increased significantly in this past year. I wouldn't be surprised to see us facing a similar expense in 2021, but hopefully we will have appropriated enough money to support that appropriation. This money has already been spent because we are required to provide that protection to the veterans. So if we don't take this action, we end up with a budget deficit in that line, which would have to be taken care of from free cash in the recap sheet. Since that money ultimately ends up there anyway, it just made sense to do the housekeeping now.
Any questions?
Yeah, Frank, if I'm not mistaken, aren't a certain percentage of the veterans benefits reimbursable by the state or federal government?
Yes, 75%, but
Yeah.
we get it a year after it's spent.
Yeah, I understand. Okay.
Okay, we'll call for a vote. Justin?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Randy?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. Act on the request of Chief Greno for a line item transfer in the amount of $8,750. It's either, I can't read it. It's either 7 or
875150.
50 from line item number 137, town-owned sprinkler / fire maintenance to line item number 135 expense. Is there a motion? Is
Dan motions.
there a second?
Brian second.
Frank, you want to say anything about that?
Normally, the transfers like this would come from either all of the services or another large expense within the fire department. And the reason for the transfer is additional maintenance costs for ambulances which were not anticipated. In this case, ironically, because of COVID, the sprinkler maintenance that's done each year was not done this year, simply because people couldn't operate. So the surplus in that line is being transferred with your approval to expense.
Any questions of Frank? Call for a vote then.
Sorry.
Justin.
I just want to check in. We have a visitor who joined us. Is there a specific?
Yeah, I was going to do that after the vote.
Okay, perfect. Then I'll vote yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Randy?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. I was wondering about that myself, Justin. Thank
Okay,
you.
I believe
Frank?
it's Michael Finella, if I'm saying that right, and he is our newest Class 2 licensee, whom you just voted to approve 4
Oh,
minutes ago. So,
Oh.
Mr. Finella, welcome. Congratulations. Yes, the board did approve your license request, and this is where Carl would normally say, is there anything you'd like to say?
is there anything you'd like to say? No.
Much.
Well, good luck in your business.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the act on free cash appropriation authorization request. Frank?
Okay, here's where it gets a little tricky, Dan. By law, on June 30th, any free cash unappropriated is washed out of the system and not available again until we balance the books and the DOR certifies our free cash. Due to the extraordinary circumstances for COVID, the state has issued temporary authorization for us to be able to use certified free cash from July 1st, 2019, so long as it hasn't already been appropriated.
Okay.
Our free cash, our budget plan this year is to use $1,101,006.25 in free cash and $104,806 in enterprise free cash to cover capital costs and expenses that have been planned and recommended by both this board and the Finance Committee. However, in order to do that, we must specifically vote to authorize those two items in free cash. And then, Brian, I'm going to need you to come by tomorrow if the board votes yes, to sign the certification, which will then be sent to the Department of Revenue so that we can make the appropriations that are planned for July 27th. After your vote, should you vote the way we're requesting, we will retain in free cash $823,490. And the Finance Committee is going to ask that the board support taking $300,000 of that money at town meeting on July 27th to transfer to stabilization and capital stabilization to put us in a better position for the following year. But that's not.
Any questions? Any questions of Frank? I guess you did a good job explaining that, Frank.
No.
We'll take a vote. Dan,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Randy,
Yes.
Justin,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes. And then finally on the agenda on the new business, to discuss participating in the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program. Lisa?
Yes, so the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program is a program offered that's run by the state that supports communities in preparing an action plan for resilience against climate change. Climate change has been the root of severe weather events that have caused significant damage to property, loss of life, loss of environmental resources. In Massachusetts, we are surrounded by oceans and streams and rivers, lots of water. In our town, we have 2 dams, we have a culvert, and we have a small bridge. And participating in this program opens up grant funding opportunities to help us maintain and strengthen those infrastructure. In order to be designated as an MVP community with the state, we have to complete some tasks with the assistance of the Old Colony Planning Council. Again, there's a grant that will help us assess our vulnerability to climate change and severe weather events. They will help us identify the infrastructure that will be most impacted and the damage that can be had by any type of severe weather event and any type of failure of these infrastructures. We will there'll be a core group, a team, and a project leader. We will conduct 2 workshops, a 4-hour workshop and an 8-hour workshop. Again, that will be hosted by Old Colony Planning Council. The team will sit and identify, discuss development of action plans, put this plan together. It will then be submitted to the state for review. And once we are designated as an MVP community, again, that's going to open up a lot of grant funding opportunities for us to strengthen our infrastructure that is most vulnerable to the severe weather that we face in the future. So I'm asking for the Board of Selectmen for your support to move forward with this program, and I will prepare letters of support that they will require, and any other documentation. I will get that program up and running after a vote of the board, of course.
Okay, is there a motion to support participating in this program?
Dan will make that motion.
Is there a second?
Brian, second.
Does anyone have any questions of Lisa?
Just thank you, Lisa. I think I talked about this program with you almost a year ago. I'm glad to see us moving forward.
Yes.
Okay, then we'll move to the vote. Justin?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Randy?
Yes.
And I will vote yes too. Good luck. Good luck with that, Lisa.
Great. Thank you.
And that exhausts our open meeting agenda. We have to go into executive session to discuss a couple of things. But before we do, we have a meeting scheduled for next week, the 30th. I'm not sure that's necessary. Does anyone else have any thoughts, Frank?
Yes, but there's one other thing. There was an amendment to the agenda to appoint
I'm sorry, I was looking at my wrong copy.
Patricia Goldman
Yep, I'm sorry.
to be a member of the Council on Aging. The COA is a 5-member board and has been a 3-member board for some time now. Pat, who retired from the board a couple of years ago, has agreed or stated her willingness to come on and help get things organized again, particularly with Barbara Garvey retiring in July. And the Council on Aging did select and offer the position to Mary Holland, who currently works as assistant town clerk. So it would be very helpful to have Pat on board for this, and I ask the board's consideration in making
Okay,
that
there-
appointment.
Someone make the motion to appoint Patricia Goldman to a 3-year term through
I will-
June
I'll
30th,
make that motion.
2021. Is there a
I'll
second?
make the Motion, Dan.
I'll second that, Brian.
And it's to fill an existing vacancy. Any discussion? Okay, Randy,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Justin,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes too. Thanks for reminding me of that, Frank.
Okay,
So what about the meeting next Tuesday?
I think we will probably need a brief meeting next week. And when I say brief, I'm hoping to maybe just do a couple of things. One of them will be to acknowledge the gentleman that Justin Evans submitted a recommendation to our office regarding a citizen's concern about traffic on Carlton Ave. And the other will likely be a second appointment to the COA. So I wouldn't expect.
Oh,
it
very
to be
good.
very- And there may be,
Okay.
there may be a year-end transfer request, but I wouldn't expect it to be a heavy meeting.
Okay, fine, Frank. We'll keep it on the docket then. Can you follow through with the chief and the DPW
Yes,
this week so that
maybe
when we
we'll
dis-
have something to
when we
say about
discuss-
it next week.
when we discuss the gentleman's issues on Carlton Avenue, we'll have something to say to him that's positive.
Yes,
Okay, we need a motion to go into executive session then in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel. And number 3, the other exception is to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the body. Is there a motion?
Dan motions.
Okay,
Brian,
second. Okay, roll call vote to go into executive session, and we will not be coming into open meeting. So we will be adjourning this open meeting to go into executive session. And we'll be leaving this particular Zoom site and then getting into another one. Justin,
Yes.
Brian,
yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Randy,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes also. So leave this meeting, folks, and join the other one.
and I have just sent the link to the board.
I know, I just heard it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.